And let's go to Casey in Florida. Casey, you're on the line.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Well, I want to make two things I've been holding for a while. So you touched on a lot of things, but there's one thing that nobody's been saying all morning, whether it was Stephanie Miller or you, is the blunders of the Democratic Party that they voted against lowering prescription drug costs, and it's a shame. You know, we can say about Trump and all this other stuff, but the Democratic Party is just as bad as the Republican Party. They are in bed with Wall Street, the pharmaceutical companies, and they are no better than the Republican Party. So this whole thing that the Democrats are the good cops and the Republicans are bad cops is a crock.
Casey, I'm going to figure out how to get a hold of you in 4 years. Actually, I'm going to do it in just 1 year. And I want to hear you say that again after we see what the Republicans do. But you're not going to find anyone. See, I've been working to lower drug costs in this country. I moved to D.C., got my master's in D.C. while working in an outreach HIV clinic here in D.C. after working in one in Chicago for one reason only, and that's to smash the pharmaceutical industry into pieces and build a fundamentally different system in its place. So the Democrats are not the same as the Republicans. It's just like, it's a very, I'm sorry, but it's like it's a very childish point of view. Oh, they're all bad. Throw them all out. Well, who put the amendment in? It was Bernie Sanders, and Bernie Sanders caucuses with one party, doesn't he? Yes. So obviously, Bernie Sanders, the party that he works in, is better than the party that opposes him on everything. On pharmaceutical issues, it's just totally true that the Democrats have for decades been really close with the pharmaceutical industry. Look at Obamacare. It was a deal cut with pharma that meant that nothing happened to pharma. Pharma spent $150 million to try to get Obamacare passed. So yes, that's true, and that's got to change. And we're at a point right now where that can change. But, when the Republicans are going to stop working for pharma and Wall Street? Never. Never. So, there is a massive difference between the parties. We need to have a democratic socialist takeover of the Democratic Party, make it the party of the people. It is totally true that the party of what should be the party of the people or the party of the many has become the party of the few, which means that the party of the few or the Republicans has become the party of one in this authoritarian figure that is Donald Trump. But I kind of hope that one of the things that comes out of this election is to actually put to bed forever the conception that, there's no difference between the two parties. There is. There's a huge difference between the two parties. There's a massive difference between the two parties. There are horrible people in both parties, but when you look at the parties and the bureaucracy that's put in place, there's a big difference between Jeffrey Beauregard Sessions and Loretta Lynch, right? There's a huge difference between those two people as the top law enforcement officers in the land. Does that mean Loretta Lynch is perfect? No. But children or people who have a very small conception of how things work are disappointed when someone's not perfect. And so they're like, this person's not perfect, so I'm going to put this literal white supremacist KKK loving dude in charge of as the top law enforcement agent in this land. There is a huge difference between the parties. That does not mean that the Democrats don't have to do much more. That's what we need to do. We need to ensure that we take over the Democratic Party and make it represent the people. But I'm coming back to you, Casey, in a year, and I want to see if, you still hold the opinion that the two parties are the same, because, I have if you can't tell, I have very little time for that sentiment, because I have a theory of change. I'm busy working on trying to take on the pharmaceutical industry, to get an improved, expanded Medicare that covers everyone. And so you have to have an understanding of who does what to get there. It's true, and we should be super clear. The Democrats far too often right now are in the pocket of the pharmaceutical industry. That's true. That whole DLC third way brand of the Democratic Party has held sway for far too long. It's basically an overreaction to the Reagan era. And, you know, like, oh, the only way to win is to be Republican light. But the difference between the two parties is that when the Democrats act like Republicans, that's what you're saying. When they act like Republicans, well, the Republicans are Republicans. They are the party that represents the extractive industries. They're the party, like, there's no difference between the two parties. John Kerry is the Secretary of State right now, and Rex Tillerson is going to be the Secretary of State in 4 days. Rex Tillerson, who ran Exxon, is going to be the Secretary of State, which in most, you know, in the way you look at the power of the executive, is the second most powerful person in the government, the person in charge of our foreign policy. The Secretary of State is going to be the head of ExxonMobil. Why? Because there's about $3 trillion locked up in the sanctions that we have on Russia right now. $1 trillion goes to Exxon, $2 trillion to Russia. That's why he's in charge. That's the whole reason. That's his whole reason d'etre and in that position is to get rid of that so that ExxonMobil can make $1 trillion and the oligarchs in charge of Russia can make $2 trillion and we can continue watching the planet burn. So yes, in fact, there is a difference between the two parties. Does that mean that we can't make, that we don't need to make one party much better? No, we do. We saw that. The reason that the Democrats lost is because the Democrats for too long have not been fighting on the side of the people. And we need the Democrats to fight clearly and loudly on the side of the people. And I get a little hopeful when I see things like yesterday, the 70 events happening around the country with all sorts of elected officials who are standing up, and they're standing up to Trump's agenda, to the agenda of McConnell and Ryan, the wholesale looting of the American public that is going to go down. Now, we need the Democrats to do more. We need them to be bold. We need them to fight for the people. And when they fight for the people and with the people will fight with them. That's what we need to do. It's a political revolution. You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. I'm Alex Lawson, filling in for Tom.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.